Okay, so now we're going to be multiplying rational expressions. So before we just saw a fraction, something on the top, something on the bottom. We had to factor and simplify. So for this, if you notice, the operation between the two fractions is multiplication. All right, so there's almost going to be like there's kind of two types of problems. So let's just review before we get into it something we've done before. So this is what we've done before. We multiply two fractions. Remember, we multiply right across. So 2 times 6 is 12 over 4 times 10 is 40. Okay, and then after we multiply right across, we simplify. So what goes into 12 and 40? 4 does. So the top becomes a 3, the bottom becomes a 10. And just double check, make sure that you can't simplify more. Sometimes if you reduce it, might have to reduce again. So since nothing else goes into 3 and 10, that's how we know we're done. Okay, now the next one, now we have a base and exponent. So same thing, we're going to multiply straight across. So remember, when we multiply like bases, we add our exponents. So on the top we have x to the 11th. On the bottom we have x to the 16th. Okay, now that we multiplied right across, now we're going to simplify. So now I'm dividing like bases, so I subtract my exponents. Now remember, when you subtract the bigger number minus the smaller. Okay, so 16 minus 11 is 5, and since there's more on the bottom, x to the 5th goes on the bottom. And remember, we need a 1 in top to hold its place. Okay? So that's just like a little review of some things we're going to be using. So over here, our steps for these are going to first factor everything, then simplify and multiply straight across. So it almost goes a little bit backwards in the directions. So factor, simplify like we just did on the last section, and then the multiplying is at the end. Okay? All right, so the first one that we start off with is actually a little bit harder. So let's just take our time. Okay, so this one, if you notice on the top right here, because I have to factor everything. I have to factor this, the bottom, over here, and over here. Okay, so we have to factor everything. So right here, this top piece, first, notice how the x squared is second. So let's rewrite this. So it's negative 3x squared plus 3x. That way it doesn't mess us up. So we're first just going to rewrite it. Okay? Instead of rewriting the bottom, let's factor the bottom. So just like when we did the simplifying, if you want to pause it so you can try and factor it yourself, do that, because I'm going to kind of go through the factoring a little quicker here. Okay, so the bottom factors to x plus 5, x minus 1. And then over here, this piece right here factors to x plus 5, x minus 4. And on the bottom, we just have 3x. Okay, so the only thing I didn't factor yet was that first piece. So if you remember, when I factor this, there's two terms. First, look for our DCF. That's always our first term in factoring. And remember, when there's a negative out front, take it out. So I'm going to take out a negative 3x. What's left with is x minus 1. Okay, and I'm just going to rewrite the rest. Okay, so now that we factored everything, now we can simplify. So just like we did before, when we simplified, we would only be looking at one fraction. Now that there's 2, we can simplify anything in the top with anything on the bottom, meaning anything up here, whether it's over here, anything on the top simplifies with anything on the bottom. It doesn't have to be directly above it. It can be diagonally. So the easiest thing first, let's just cross out matches. So that x plus 5 on the bottom and the x plus 5 on the top match. So we're going to cancel it right out. And that one was a diagonal cross. Then I see a x minus 1 down here and an x minus 1 on the top. So again, cross it out. This time they happen to be right above each other. So it doesn't matter. Anything up here crosses with anything down here. So sometimes when we're canceling, sometimes it might be helpful after you cross a lot of stuff out, maybe to kind of just rewrite it before you continue on. So that's what we're going to do now, so we can kind of gather everything up. So far on the top, I have a negative 3x and an x minus 4. And then I still have this 3x on the bottom. So again, I just kind of do that to gather everything, just so it doesn't get all messy and I can kind of see what's going on. So this x minus 4 doesn't match with anything. I can't cancel it anywhere, so that just stays. But see this negative 3x over the 3x? The 3x on the top cancels out with the 3x on the bottom, but don't forget, I still have this negative. So make sure when you're canceling, you're neat about it, because you might draw a cancel mark, and when you're finished the problem, you might not realize you had this negative left. So our final answer is negative. You can put a negative 1 if you want, or just a negative. X minus 4. That's it. That's all that's left. You can put over 1 if you want, or don't. Okay? So again, we factored everything, then we simplified, and then we kind of gathered it. That's the multiplying part, kind of just gathering it all together. Okay? All right, let's do one more that's like this, because like I said, there's kind of 2 different types of problems with these. So this is the one type. So same thing down here. I want you to just factor everything. So you might want to pause the video. This first one, we can only take out a GCF, which is a 2x, and we're left with an x minus 5. On the bottom, we have difference of 2 perfect squares times, rewrite that. Then I have an x plus 3, which I know doesn't factor. You can write it in parentheses if you want it to match. And I know it doesn't factor because there's no x squared. There's nothing I can do. I can't break it down anymore. Okay? And then the 2x squared, there's nothing I can do there because that's only one term. So I can't factor that. So I just rewrite it. So first thing is, let's look for terms that match or factors that match. And I have something that matches. I have the x minus 5. So since there's 1 on the top and 1 on the bottom, I'm going to cancel it out. Now, x plus 3 and x plus 5 do not cancel. So we could even rewrite it at this point if we want, or you don't have to. But I'm going to rewrite it. I like to gather everything. So I still have a 2x on the top and an x plus 3. Over, I still have this x plus 5. But I also have this 2x squared. Now I'm going to write that out front, just so it's right below what it's going to cancel with. So the 2's cancel out. When I simplify x over x squared, think about your simplifying rules. When I simplify x over x squared, if you want to write the exponent up here, remember it's a 1. Subtract the exponents. So 2 minus 1 is 1, and it goes in the bottom because that's where there's more. So what's left? X plus 3 in the top, x to the first, and x plus 5 is in the bottom. All right, and you don't need this 1, but you can put it if you want it. And on the top, if you want to leave it in parentheses, you certainly can, but since it's the only thing that's up there, you don't need the parentheses. Alrighty, so this next problem is the different type of problem, the other type of problem. So what's different about this one versus the last 2? If you notice, there is no addition or subtraction. So all you see is terms. Remember, they're held together by multiplication. No addition and subtraction, just terms and exponents. So these you're going to do it a little bit differently. Okay, these what you're going to do is you're going to first multiply straight across. So remember we multiply our numbers. 8 times 7 is 56. When I multiply x cubed times x to the 4th, I get x to the 7th. Remember we add our exponents. And y to the 4th. Okay, on the bottom, same thing, multiply first. So multiply the numbers. 2 times 4 is 8. X, I'm going to write to the first because it doesn't combine with anything and I want to be able to see the exponent. And then I'm going to have y to the 3rd. Okay, now that I multiplied first, and again, I do that because there's no addition and subtraction. There's nothing to factor. I just multiply first. Now I simplify, just like I did on the last section, simplify. So first the number 8 over 56 is 7 or 7 over 1, and you can write over 1 if you want. Now that I'm dividing, I subtract my exponents, so x to the 6th on top, and then y to the 1st on the top. Okay, if you want to leave it over 1, you certainly can, but you do not have to. Okay, now the next one is similar to this type. So if you notice, there's no addition or subtraction. There's just multiplication, right? There's multiplication between each term. So this is the kind I'm going to multiply first. So multiply straight across. So 5 times 27 is 135. X to the 7th and y cubed goes on top. Then on the bottom, 15 times 3 is 45. X to the 5th and y to the 5th. Okay, now simplify the numbers. So now we're at the simplifying point, which is what we did last week. So simplify 135 over 45. Simplify it down as much as you can, and it goes to 3 or 3 over 1. Okay, the x's, I'm going to have 7 minus 5, which is 2, and there's more in the top, so x squared goes on top. And the y's, I'm going to do 5 minus 3, which is 2, so y squared goes in the bottom. Okay, the next row, I messed up the numbering, shouldn't be 2, but the next row, the last row. So look, see if we see addition. If we see addition, that's the kind that we have to factor first. So I do see addition, so we're going to factor. So the 6 on top just stays 6, so I'm just going to rewrite it. Over, take out the GCF, that's all we can do on the bottom. Times, take out the GCF again. Okay, now see how the x plus 4's cancel out? So now I'm going to kind of gather everything or multiply everything. So on the top I have a 6x, and on the bottom I have 5 times 9, which is 45. Okay, simplify, so see if there's a number that goes into the top and the bottom. So 6 over 45, I can reduce that. It reduces to 2 over 15. And then the x just stays on top. And that's my final answer, 2x over 15. Okay, the next problem, there is no addition, so this is the one where I multiply first. So multiply, this one's gonna, actually let's skip this one. And let's go to the last one. So the last one, okay, this one we have addition or subtraction, so we have to factor first. So pause the video, see if you can factor this properly. First we take out a GCF. and then try and factor more. So x minus 7, x plus 1 on the top. Now, right here on the bottom, first we can take out a GCF also. Take out an x, and we're left with x squared minus 16. Now, always try and factor more after the GCF. This does factor more because this is the difference of two perfect squares. So on the bottom, we have x, which was our GCF, x plus 4, x minus 4. Okay, now this one, just like the first one, see how the factor's written almost backwards? First, I'm gonna rewrite it. So I'm gonna rewrite it as negative 4x minus 16, just so it matches the way the rest are. And when I factor, it's gonna be lined up with everything. Okay, so I'm gonna factor out a negative 4, and I'm left with x plus 4. And on the bottom, take out a 6, and I'm left with x minus 7. Okay, let's cross out some matching factors. So it looks like I have an x plus 4 on the bottom and the top. And it looks like I have a x minus 7 in the bottom and the top. Okay, so from here, again, I'm going to multiply and gather everything. There might be more I can simplify, so let's check it out. So 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. And then we have an x plus 1 over, on the bottom, I have a 6x. So we kind of got to write it in the order it should be written so we can simplify properly. And an x minus 4. Okay, so the two factors don't match and aren't the same, so those are going to stay. Right here, negative 8 over 6. So can I simplify negative 8 over 6? Yes, it reduces by 2. So the final answer is negative 4 over 3. The x doesn't go anywhere, and neither do the two factors. Okay.